Wasn't that fun? We just had a great time out at Molly and Gary Beverly's house. Thank you guys so much for that great tour, and Molly for showing us how you preserve and put up all of that amazing produce that you grow. Garden to plate, there it is, all year round. So I'm here in my kitchen with a lot of the produce that Molly sent me home with. Thank you, Molly. To make her minestrone soup and to talk about her process with her recipe. It's a great recipe, and it was originally published in the magazine Edible Communities last year. And it's set up like a template, so there are steps to take, and that template helps you make this soup your own. So as Molly says, it changes with the season, it changes with what's growing in the garden, and she knows it's time to make soup when her refrigerator is full of produce from her garden. So here it is. This is how you do it. So you start with a base of flavorful vegetables and what we call aromatics. So what I have cooking in the pot right now are some onions and garlic, which I started cooking a while ago and let them brown really well. And then I put some carrots in there and green beans. And each step I let the vegetable brown. So put the carrots in, let that brown a little bit. Put the green beans in, did the same thing. And I just threw in some zucchini. And I'm letting that brown as well. And I also put a pinch of salt in there. So each step, as you let each vegetable brown, it adds more flavor to the soup. And there's about 3 tablespoons of olive oil in there. It makes a big batch of soup, so it's not a lot of fat. And that fat's really important for the soup because it carries a lot of flavor, offers a nice fullness to the soup, and it also helps you absorb all of those really great nutrients in those vegetables and herbs, all those phytochemicals that I talk about all the time. So a little bit of fat in your food is actually, it's okay. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about some more of the vegetables that I'm going to put in. I want to show you what Molly said she's just in love with. These are black-eyed peas. These are baby immature black-eyed peas. So I can cut these up just like green beans and put those in the soup. And if I open one up, you'll see that there's some, this one's not opening up really easily. Let's see, there we go. There's some baby beans in there. Not quite fully formed, but super tender. Kind of eat them just like that. So just like a regular green bean, if you open up a green bean, you'll see the little baby beans in there. So black-eyed peas, Molly's got a great story with these. As she said, she just went to the grocery store, bought a bag of black-eyed peas, brought them home, and just planted them in her garden. She did it first for the purpose of adding some nutrients to the soil. So when you plant beans, any kind of legume, it's that they're nitrogen fixers. So they help to bring nitrogen and nutrients into the soil. So it was really just a cover crop for her. But then she discovered that they grow really well, and it's really cool. They're really easy to harvest because the greens grow straight up. They're not hiding under leaves, so they're really easy to pick. I also have some other beans here that are a little bit more mature. So we've got beans in various states of maturity that are going in this soup. So these are still tender. I can eat them. And they're a little crunchy, but they're still tender. So I'm going to throw those in the soup too. And what'll be neat is it'll offer some different textures to the soup. So the green beans and the black-eyed peas will be nice and tender. And then these more mature seeds will also be tender, but they'll also have a little more substance to them. So I will throw these into the pot next. And let these brown up a bit. And another ingredient I'll throw in, which is really fun, is this beautiful red okra. So just like regular okra, it's a great thickener for things, for this soup. It's going to be great because there's a soluble fiber in okra that not only is healthy, but it is a natural thickener. And the red okra is different from green okra in that it's a little more tender. And so the okra like this big with the green would be kind of tough, but with the red it's actually pretty tender. And this hails from Africa. Molly has discovered that it grows really well in our area and in this ecosystem. So I'll just slice, and okra is just so pretty. Look at that. Those of you who don't like okra, don't shy away from putting it in this soup because, like I said, it adds nice substance, it thickens the soup a bit, and it really just melts into the soup. You don't even know it's there. So if you're a little shy of okra, this is a wonderful recipe to try because you're not going to even notice the okra. So I'll throw this in the pot. Those green beans aren't quite brown, but I want to just speed the process up a little bit for us. Put that in there. Also, some chopped up green chilies. These were mild Italian green peppers and a mild yellow pepper from Molly's garden. Smells so good. So next thing that we'll put in is I'm going to throw in some herbs, and you can do lots of different combinations here of fresh and dried. So I have some fresh sage from my garden and some fresh thyme that I'll use, and then I'll also put in some dried oregano, which is actually from Molly. And when she dries her herbs, she dries them in the whole leaf form, meaning that she just lets the thing dry and she doesn't crush it up before she stores it. So this way, those dried herbs will maintain their flavor, the oils will stay fresher. And so I'm going to use a little bit of oregano because when you use dried herbs, about a tablespoon of dried is equal to 3 tablespoons of fresh. So they're much more potent. So I don't want to put a ton of oregano in there because I don't want it to overpower things. So I'll probably I'm going to start with about this because I'm pretty sure this is pretty strong oregano. When I throw it in the pot, I'll crush it up, and that will release the oils and the flavor into the soup. My thyme, I'll just strip the leaves off, throw that in there. I try not to let too many of those stems get in there because when you're eating the soup, they're not really fun. So I'll pull some of those bigger stems out. And I'll chop up my sage. If you have rosemary handy, that goes really well in this soup. Parsley goes really well. I don't happen to have any parsley, so I'm going to rely on these herbs that I do have. Other vegetables that you could put in your soup would include eggplants and celery. I don't happen to have any of those right now, so I'm just using what I have. Also, potatoes go really well. And so again, kind of playing off what is in your garden. The one thing Molly won't put in her minestrone is corn. So there you go, Molly. I'm not putting any corn in this soup. So those veggies are getting brown. My herbs are in there. I'll throw in a pinch of salt to draw out the flavor. I'll throw in a pinch of black pepper. So what we're doing here, every step we're building flavor, because when you make soup, you're basically trying to flavor water. So you gotta give it a lot of help. And this is gonna be so flavorful with all of these brown vegetables. I'm so excited. So the next step is to throw in some tomatoes. And these are from Molly's garden, some beautiful aromas. And she shares a really neat trick for putting tomatoes into soup that removes the skin, which makes the soup nicer to eat, because getting a big dose of tomato skins in the soup it sometimes isn't very fun. So you basically cut the tomato in half, and using a grater, grate the tomato until all you have left is the skin. That's it. And throw your skin in your compost, and what you get is something that looks very much like crushed tomatoes. If you don't have fresh tomatoes, that's okay. You could use a can of crushed tomatoes, or diced, or whole tomatoes. You know, with the whole tomatoes, maybe you know, cut them up before you put them in the pot. Sometimes I cut them up with a pair of scissors. That makes it easier than slicing them with a knife. So there's my tomatoes, and I'll throw those in there. Stir it up. And I'm going to throw in some water now. So this next step is called deglazing the pan. And that will remove those browned bits of yumminess that are stuck to the sides and the bottom of the pan. Which means that my soup will be even more flavorful. So just enough water to loosen up those brown bits. I'm going to add a little bit more so my veggies are covered up a little bit. You know, when Molly makes this soup, she says she makes it thick enough so that a spoon stands straight up in the pot. So that's my goal here. So it's more like a stew than a soup, but you can certainly make it more soupy if you like. That's fine. I'm going to throw in a couple of bay leaves for even more extra flavor. And the secret ingredient is a Parmesan rind. So this is the edge of Parmesan cheese when you buy it in a chunk. And we usually throw this out. Don't throw these out. They add flavor to so many things, soups and sauces. I'm going to throw it in the soup. We'll have to fish it out later on because it doesn't melt. It gets kind of soft. And after you fish it out, you can rinse it off, put it in the freezer. You can use it another time. So that goes in the soup. And I'm just going to let that cook down while I cut up some greens, which would be the next ingredient to add. If you wanted to put some meat in, like some pancetta or bacon or chicken or beef, you would add that after the vegetables brown. You can throw in some sort of animal protein. So for my greens, these are some beautiful baby bok choy leaves that are from my friends down at Whipstone Farm in Paulden. They go really well in a soup. They're mild, so kind of like spinach. And so you get the nice soft green part, and then you also get this little bit of a crunch here with the stems, which I'm trying to cut pretty thin here. So this kind of, I guess, would take place of the celery. It's kind of celery-like. I'll chop the greens up a little bit more. I'm just thinking how it's going to be like to eat this soup. So I want kind of small bits of green on my spoon. So I'm going to chop those up a little bit more. So you could put spinach in here if you had some turnip greens, which are pretty nice, mild. You could throw those in there. Something stronger like mustard greens or maybe beet greens probably wouldn't go so well in this soup. Beets wouldn't go really well in this soup either. Just would kind of mess with the whole flavor profile and turn it really red or pink. There's my greens. And then next step is to add some sort of substance. So at this point, after your veggies are cooked down and your greens are cooked down, you can add some beans or some cooked grain like quinoa or wheat berries. I don't have any of those cooked grains, but I am going to add some beans. And these beans are really special. They were grown by Molly, and they're called Italian borlotti beans. And I saved some to show you what they look like. So this is when they're dry. Aren't they so pretty? So they look like they're black and white. They're actually, that's a real deep purple color, which is a super important color when you look at phytochemical content and nutrients. So things that are dark blue, dark purple, those are really great for you, things to look for. So when you cook the beans, you can see that purple comes out. And these are delicious beans. They're really tender. They're a little bit sweet. They've got a really nice texture. I pressure cooked these in about, I think it took 20 minutes. So from dry to cooked, just beans and water. They're so good. I'm so excited because I'm going to save some of these and plant them next year. So I'll have my own crop or a lot of beans. So beans can go in basically now, and I'm going to throw in the liquid in the beans as well, and that's going to add even more flavor and substance to the soup. There's that Parmesan rind. Let's stick that under there so it flavors everything. And at this point, I will just let this cook down. I'll keep an eye on it. I'll give it a stir now and then. I'll see if it needs some more liquid. But right now I'm just gonna let it cook down. So Molly makes this, she calls this her summer minestrone to eat in winter because she makes big batches of it and it freezes really well, so she can enjoy all the tastes of her garden in the middle of winter. So if you're gonna freeze this, if you had added some cooked grains or beans, that's okay, but you don't want to add anything else because the next thing you could add is some cooked pasta. And you really want to do that only right before you serve it because the pasta won't freeze really well, and if it's sitting in the soup for a long time, it's just going to get all mushy. So stop here if you're going to freeze it. Add some cooked pasta right before you serve it if you want to add the pasta. Usually some short little pasta that's easy to eat on a spoon. That's Molly's minestrone, and when I serve this, we can garnish it with some pesto, which I think I'll make from this beautiful bunch of basil that Molly sent me home with. I could slice some basil and just put some sliced fresh herbs, fresh parsley, some grated cheese, some chopped fresh tomato, all sorts of things that you can add to the soup to make it a wonderful experience. So I hope you make it at home sometime soon. And until next time, eat well, be well, and we'll see you soon.